Morning, everybody. Something that has been on my mind for a long time that I just realized this morning. I felt this prompting to look at my laundry over there. Yeah, I've got some laundry that I need to fold. Real life, we had a plumbing mishap this week, and so we had to use all of those towels to clean it up. Yeah, so that's what they're right there. Anyway, I really wanted to just bring up something that has been really kind of like underlying my healing for a long time. And it's the difference between wanting and being willing. And I've been reading this book called Chasing Cupcakes by Elizabeth Benton. Kelly Brock recommended for me, my coach. And she just reminded me of how important this is and the difference between these things. Wanting versus willing, thinking versus doing, or thinking versus acting. And what came to my mind as I was reading this morning when it comes to the adoptee mindset is we want to change. We want to grow. We want to be different. But in order to be able to do that, we have to be willing to put in some action, to do something different than what we have been doing. And I think my 7-phase program that I have created is based upon this experience of mine. Wanting versus willing. Wanting, you stay stuck. There's this desire, I want to, but I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. I keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's insanity, right? Versus willingness, which is being willing to make these tiny, maybe imperceptible shifts that over time make a huge transformation in our life. So willingness means that you put in action. Wanting means you stay stuck. Thinking isn't the same as acting. And so I think sometimes we do need to spend some time just being with ourselves. And that is what self-awareness is all about. But what's interesting is that I've found in this 7-phase journey that I've been on, that where I was originally was self-ignorance. I was just ignorant. I didn't know what was going on underneath the surface. I had no idea that the primal trauma that I experienced in the first 7 weeks of my life was impacting my present. So it was self-ignorance first. And then it was self-rejection. Like I just didn't believe that I was worthy of being there for. And so I just continually rejected myself and what I needed and threw myself into what others needed and wanted and desired, not what I needed, wanted, and desired. Then I was indifferent. Like I've done all of that already. I'm clearly ignorant. I know it's showing up. I know that I've been rejecting myself, but none of what I've been doing is contributing to the change that I want to see. So then I just became indifferent. Like, okay, well, whatever. Nothing's working anyway. But that was because I was sitting in the wanting and not acting. Then because of that, I began to neglect myself. I began to think, well, my worthiness isn't intrinsic. I shouldn't exist anyway. So I'll just neglect my needs and wants. And then I went into this place of self-preservation. I'll just keep what I have, and that's enough. Maybe that will help me survive. So I self-preserved. And then after that, it turned into this, none of that is working, so I'm just gonna loathe myself. None of this was conscious, y'all. It was over time, I just began to recognize that all the things that I had thought I was doing were not helping. And so then I just started loathing myself and abandoning myself. We've talked about this in the past. I recently talked about this on my friend Becky's podcast about self-abandoning. So all of those phases, that self-abandonment is what really began to open my eyes to the need to increase my awareness, to recognize that I wasn't stuck, that if I made a tiny shift, if I did something different, then maybe, just maybe, I could transform. And it was that word could that really began to help me. And I had to begin to accept, next phase, that shame was active in my life, that I was taking responsibility for things that were out of my hands. Things like being relinquished 4 times before I was 7 weeks old. I was 7 weeks old. How could I communicate what I needed in those moments? I didn't have words. So, that awareness, that accepting that I could be different, showing myself compassion in those moments of, wow, okay, that makes sense. There was a lot of trauma that happened in the beginning of my life. And I need to honor that and sit with that and be with that and realize that I'm not alone. That's where the adoptee community comes in. That's how we can support each other. And then from there, I had to begin to take responsibility for the feelings that all of that stirred up. Feelings are information. They're just data. I don't need to really do anything with them, but that's not where the transformation happens. Information isn't transformation, as Kelly Brock would always tell me. Information is something that helps me realize how to make those tiny imperceptible shifts. And so then I had to realize, okay, I can have compassion on myself. I can take responsibility for my feelings. Then I had to get to that place of what's next? How do I transform? Well, that is where the big thing happens. That's where the big shift happens. That's when you begin to realize that giving time to the problem, the past trauma, is not going to be where the shift happens. It's giving energy to the solution. And when I began to realize that I was sitting in shame, that is the lowest vibing emotion that you can experience, is shame. And I had to begin to make those imperceptible shifts from wanting that change to being willing to act on whatever that was. So for me, it was gratitude. It was taking the time and effort every single day to write down 5 things that I was grateful for. Actionable, what happened in the last 24 hours that added value to my life, that brought a smile to my face, that made me feel joy in my heart. What were those things? Like, for example, yesterday it was seeing the joy on my son's face when he got his first tattoo and how cool it was that he was so excited about it. Like, that is I can acknowledge that and see how that added value to my life and made me happy in those moments. That moves you up the energy vibe ladder, if you will, and allows you to get to this place of being able over time to be courageous and face things. But it just takes those tiny imperceptible shifts. And for me, gratitude was the game changer. And then after that, I was able to love myself in that place and recognize that my life is really great. And even though I may be dealing with things from my past, even though I may be working on some really hard things and some traumatic things in my life, it allowed me to move from wanting to willing and take action on those things in my life that I really wanted shifts in. It just took one imperceptible shift into gratitude. And from there, I was able to realize that I actually do belong to me, that I don't need anybody else around me to tell me that I'm okay. That within me, I knew that I was okay. That belonging came from within, not from without. And that is what continually pushes me forward to being willing to do more work on myself. Because I see the value, I see the shift, I see it frees up energy for me. I'm no longer sitting in abandonment, rejection, neglect, ignorance, indifference. No, I'm sitting in the opposite of those. And the more time spent allowing myself to take those little shifts that don't keep me stuck in the wanting, but move me towards action and willingness, that is what has been the game changer for me. And what I wanted to share with everybody today, because it's been so life altering for me, but also anchoring to realize that I definitely, when I see that want, when I know that there's that want there and I can begin to feel stuck, I can go, I'm not stuck. All I need to do is take one imperceptible shift, do one little thing to move the scale a little bit. And it's been a life changer, game changer for me. So I hope y'all have a wonderful Friday.